I was on my way to tell Silas Crow that I was pregnant when I got into a terrible car accident. Clinging to life, the first person I called was Silas. But he didn't even hesitate. He hung up. That single moment of indifference cost me everything. I wasn't rushed to the hospital in time, and the baby, who hadn't even fully formed, was gone. On the drive home from the hospital, Silas finally called. "Sorry, Nina," he said, his tone casual, as if nothing had happened. "I was tied up in a meeting and couldn't take your call earlier." I let out a hollow laugh, masking the bitterness clawing at my chest. "It's fine," I replied coolly. But just 5 minutes before his call, I'd seen a photo on social media posted by his secretary, Elise Hart. In it, Silas was crouched beside Elise's young son, helping him pick out children's toys. His expression was warm and tender, the kind of look I'd always hoped he'd reserve for me. When I didn't push further, Silas seemed to relax. His voice softened, almost playful. "Be good and wait at home for me, okay? When I'm done with work, we'll go check out those houses together." We'd been together for 5 years, and last month we'd finally decided to tie the knot. The wedding was set for the 1st of next month. When I found out I was pregnant, I'd been so excited to share the news. I even planned to suggest we start preparing a nursery. But now none of that mattered because I wasn't marrying him anymore. That night, I waited for Silas in the living room, determined to end things. Hours passed, and I ended up dozing off on the couch. It wasn't until the middle of the night that the doorbell jolted me awake. When I opened the door, there was Elise, holding up a drunken Silas. "I'm so sorry, Nina," she said, her tone dripping with fake sincerity. "Silas was going to come straight home, but I begged him to stay for a drink. Please don't take it the wrong way. It's just, my ex-husband showed up and caused a scene. I was scared and needed someone to keep me company." Elise and Silas had been childhood friends, practically inseparable. Everyone said that if she hadn't left the country years ago, Silas never would have ended up with me. Now she was back. And despite being a single mom, Silas's feelings for her hadn't changed one bit. When Elise mentioned she needed a job, Silas immediately created a position for her at Crow Holdings, making her the head of the secretarial department. I pressed my lips together, stepping aside to let Elise drag Silas inside. The moment Silas hit the couch, he instinctively reached out and pulled Elise into his arms. "Silas, stop it! Let go!" Elise shouted, but she made no real effort to pull away. Eventually, Silas seemed to regain some semblance of awareness and loosened his grip. Elise stepped back just enough to maintain appearances, her voice trembling with calculated vulnerability. "I didn't mean for this to happen. Please don't be mad, okay?" I nodded, my voice calm. "It's fine. You should go home." Elise blinked, clearly caught off guard by my lack of reaction. After a moment of hesitation, she turned and left. I looked down at Silas, passed out and reeking of cheap perfume, and knew there was no point in trying to talk tonight. I turned to leave, but his hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. "Nina," he slurred, his words heavy with alcohol. I just hugged Elise. "And you're not even jealous?" The sickly sweet scent of his cologne mixed with the perfume clinging to his clothes made my stomach churn. I pulled my hand free, keeping my voice steady. "Didn't you always say you two are just friends? Friends hug. It's no big deal. Why would I care?" In the past, whenever I got upset about how close he was to Elise, that was always his excuse. Hearing it from me now seemed to catch him off guard. I didn't wait for his reaction. I turned and headed upstairs. The next day, I met up with my best friend, Lila Brooks, at a cafe. "Lila," I began, "does your offer to take me abroad for work still stand?" She raised an eyebrow, setting her coffee down. "Of course. Why? Are you finally considering it?" I nodded without hesitation. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Seriously? You've been so adamant about staying here because of Silas. What changed? Did you two fight?" I shook my head, unwilling to drag my personal problems into this. "No." Sensing I didn't want to elaborate, Lila didn't press further. Just then, the door to the cafe swung open, and in walked Silas, with Elise and her son. Elise spotted me first, her face drained of color as she quickly hid behind Silas, clutching her child. "Silas," she whispered, "Nina's here too." "What are you so scared of?" I said, my lips curving into a cold smile. "I'm not going to bite." Silas's expression darkened. He'd told me earlier he was meeting an important client. Now, caught red-handed spending his day off with Elise and her son, he looked rattled. He walked over, trying to act unfazed. "Nina, don't overthink this. I just finished a meeting and decided to grab a coffee. I ran into Elise by chance." "You're the mean lady trying to take my daddy away." Elise's son, Jude, glared at me, his childish accusation laced with venom. Elise quickly covered his mouth. "Jude." Her words might have sounded like a scolding, but the smugness in her tone was impossible to miss. I had no patience for their pitiful performance. Rising from my seat, I grabbed my bag and turned to leave with Lila. Silas grabbed my arm, his brow furrowing in frustration. "Nina, are you mad? I told you it was just a coincidence. Why do you always have to overreact? You're so jealous." This was his favorite tactic, turning the tables on me whenever he had no excuse for his actions. He'd make it about my jealousy, twisting things until I doubted myself. For years I let him convince me I was the problem and that I was the unreasonable one. But what kind of man spent this much time alone with another woman? Jealous? Lila cut in before I could respond, her voice sharp. A married man who's glued to another woman 24/7? Anyone would think she is the wife, not Nina. Grabbing my hand, Lila shot Silas one last glare before pulling me out of the cafe.